what is more valuable is the attitude. And for mothers or women who are looking at returning to the workforce, attitude, and also sometimes perhaps even looking at skills that you probably attained as a mother. Juggling, the schedules of your children's school and enrichment classes schedule, all these are valuable skill sets needed really in juggling and can be shared as examples even to your interviewer.
I've come across this being said as we hire for the will and we train for the skills.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
So hello and welcome to another episode of Make It Work. I'm your host, Sarah Wong, and today we are in a very special place. This is a podcast studio, the first time I've ever been in one, so thank you so much for renting this for us, Louisa. Louisa Lee caught my eye when I found out that she was a teacher turned entrepreneur, and she is almost 20 years owning a dental practice together with her husband, the dentist in the family, and it's expanded into wellness, children's teeth, which is actually something quite close to my heart. And also she is very active in the community with other women entrepreneurs and other women. So without further ado, let me introduce Louisa Lee.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Thank you for coming here. So tell us about your story in 2 minutes or less.
So I'm Louisa, and I am a co-founder of DP Dental together with my husband, Dr. Yu Wing Chu. And I've been managing the practices for more than 20 years. Wing Chu is actually my childhood sweetheart. So we've actually been classmates since we were in JC, and we have been together since. We've got 2 boys, Sean, who's 20 this year, and he's also caught the entrepreneurial bug. So he started his own business since he was 13, and Shay is now 15 years old. So yeah, that's us.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. When we had a conversation before this, you talked about how you had more outlets of your dental practice that you've started to scale back because of a new strategy. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it's been as an entrepreneur thus far?
So our growth in DP Dental has always been spearheaded by the vision that my husband has. I mean, he's a person who actually asked the why question 5 levels deep. And so he never took everything that he's learned just at face value, but he would ask, like, why is it that teenagers have crooked teeth, and tracing it all to the root of how the tongue is being placed, how that has been affected from habits of breathing from birth, and how that affects sleep and overall health. So right from the get-go, DP Dental had always been very progressive. We have been early adopters of ideologies, but we're also a lot about solving problems at the root cause and going back to the basic why. And I think because of that, we have been implementing more and more early interventions within our practice. So we are pioneers in implementing myofunctional therapy, of training children from young to correct the habit of mouth breathing. Yeah. So that also then led us to creating a whole ecosystem of other businesses related. So I also have a channel partnership distributorship arm called Progressive Practice, because a lot of the equipment that we needed wasn't found in Singapore or Asia. We needed it for ourselves, and we ended up being distributors of it and channel partners of it for Asia. We also have an academy, because when you're doing with things that are so advanced and a lot of people are still not aware of, we need to educate. And the wellness clinic was also set up because for us, our clients are at the center of everything that we do. And for me, it's that if we are already in the preventative, early interventive phase, what else can be providing them? And that would be to educate people that your health is actually something that can be in your own hand. You can be empowered, and that can come about through a change of habits.
Wow. It sounds like it's been a growth since the past 18 years. And one thing that I missed mentioning, which was really one of the big things that drew me to Louisa and her story, was that DP Dental was one of the first few in Singapore to actually start offering a 4-day work week to their employees. Kudos on that. And you're also a B Corp certified company, which is, I know, very difficult to attain. So that's a huge achievement.
Thank you. Thank you. The 4-day work week idea came from a suggestion through our GM at that time, Mike. And for me, when we are looking at, in business, we are looking at providing the best customer service to our clients. But as a business owner, the best thing that we can do is to assemble the best team who can then take care of our clients. And so we came to the realization that not everyone is suited for a 5-day work week, that there is actually a group of people, and I realized the mothers are the ones who would actually appreciate a 4-day work week option, because some are transiting back to work, or that a 4-day work week allows them another 3 days to really focus on the family. And so that idea, when we adopted it, was even before this whole 4-day work week trend started. And so it even got us an earned media opportunity in the Straits Times and all these. I think for us is that implementing the 4-day work week allowed us to hire really good people who otherwise would not have gone back into the workforce, or perhaps would have even stopped working because of that. So I've got some really great team members who are with us and even holding leadership positions, but on a 4-day work week. Yeah.
Wow, I'd love to double click on that, because it's something, as a working mom looking out for hybrid or flexible work strategies, it's something that I personally gravitate to, as well as a lot of my listeners. So can you talk a little bit about how that looks like in your practice? What type of roles, and how do you make it work, essentially? The big question.
I must say it's not easy, because the toughest part is the scheduler, the person who is in charge of the schedule. Because there are some people who are still on the traditional 5-day work week, only because these are team members who come from overseas. And for them, what would work is a more flexible arrangement whereby they would rather be working longer or many more days within the week, but then have a longer stretch of off days so that they can go pay a visit back home. I think for me, flexibility is the key. So I don't think a 4-day work week option is for every kind of business. But I think the key word here is flexible work arrangement. Is how, as a business owner, we adopt flexibility wherever we can. So I have my HR personnel, my marketing manager, they have more of a work from home kind of arrangement. Yeah, I have some of my dental assistants. So the dental assistants and our patient relations executives, they can't work from home. But even then, we also still factor some flexibility. Like, for instance, I recently had a team member, a patient relations executive who was pregnant, and the doctor actually ordered bed rest. So she knew we were very busy and all that, so she offered to support from home. You know, like make some form of scheduling arrangement or calls, helping call. So whatever that could be done off from the clinic, away from the clinic. So I think technology has really allowed us to explore all kinds of different flexible options. It's difficult, of course, but it's definitely something that is worth considering, because the team members will then will be able to appreciate the value that we are providing them, and ideally stay longer with the company.
No, thank you for doing that, and being one of the pioneers of this new now it's becoming, I hope, one day the norm of like flexible work arrangements. And I'm sure that it's been a challenge even to work internally, right? To have everyone feel like, okay, this is not like being unfair or things like that.
Trust is very important, and I think we place a lot of trust in our team. Everything is figure-outable.
I love that. So, okay, further double clicking on that, since you'll go 5 levels down, tell me, if I am a mom who wants to return into the workforce and I'm looking specifically for more flexible work options, I want to maybe apply for a company like yours, what should my mindset be? What are the ways that I can talk about it without sounding like I just want to take advantage of the flexibility?
I think over 20 years, so I literally entered, I was an educator before I entered dental industry, right, and became a business owner. I recall that when the early days of interview, I was very smitten with people, with the skills, I don't know, more like the knowledge of the industry. But I have since learned that what is more valuable is the attitude. And for mothers or women who are looking at returning to the workforce, attitude, and also sometimes perhaps even looking at skills that you probably attained as a mother. Juggling, the schedules of your children's school and enrichment classes schedule, all these I feel are valuable skill sets needed really in juggling and can be shared as examples even to your interviewer. So to me, it's never about having that industry knowledge, because industry knowledge can be taught, can be learned. And so what I'm looking for would be people who display this whole attitude that I don't know, but I can learn, then you've got me.
I've come across this being said as we hire for the will and we train for the skills.
That's right.
Kind of like what
That's
you're
right.
talking about, where maybe sometimes we don't know that much about the industry, but if you have a can-do attitude, that's almost like first prize.
And to survive in today's very competitive and ever-changing landscape, right? I think, what we need are people who are creative, people who are really good at getting ideas and applying and having a lot of initiative in carrying out things, and not say like wait for a title to be bestowed before I do some things. And these are, I call it managing upwards too, because everyone has his or her own gifts, right? And to me, I think that is where my educator mindset comes in. So we even internally joke that when you join DP Dental, you're joining DP Academy, right? And you're here to get a whole learn. You're here to learn too, right? And I think that is my role as a business owner, as the leader in my organization, is to help my team members discover their strengths and put them in places where they can really shine. And honestly, as a small and medium enterprise, eventually I even recognize that we are training people for other larger organizations even.
I would love to know if you have any example that comes to mind of maybe a case where you've hired someone who maybe did not have the skill sets, someone looking for that flexibility. How has that worked out?
So really, to me, what we are looking for are versatile people who are willing to learn and can fill any role. I think this is a trend I'm noticing in a lot of young people, especially the very well-educated ones. When they graduate from university, the first thing that they are thinking of is, I want to work in a Google, Facebook, or whatever. It will look good on my resume. Otherwise, they'll say, maybe I'll work in a startup, because they are cool. They often have like table soccer and basketball machines in the office, free food. I really want to appeal to people to consider SMEs. Yeah, so it's because not all of us are just mom and pop shops, traditional. Well, there are some a little bit more traditional, but there are companies like ours too who are innovative, but we may be small, but we are small giants, and we are actually innovators, and we are actually setting a lot of different trends. So working in a smaller company allows you direct contact with the founders, and you get to learn, and oftentimes you wear more than one hat, but you are just gathering all these skills, honing all these skills that really then make you very versatile.
Wow, I know that a lot of us are out there in transition in between jobs. Beyond LinkedIn, or is this where we find these innovative companies like yourself on LinkedIn? Where do we go? How do we find out about these medium enterprises that are just not giving as much limelight or don't come out on our feed,
I'm a believer of networking. So I'm an I person. My MBTI is INFJ.
Okay.
So I'm not a natural networker in that sense, and that's why all women networking sessions really help. And because of that, I'm now currently ambassador of Connected Women in Singapore. And networking, I think, or going out to meet people and learning, sharing stories is a good way, definitely, to get to know other fabulous businesses. Yeah.
If we're in the actual interview stage, what are some things that we can, as interviewees, ask to find out this kind of fit?
First of all, go check out the company's website, right? And then which line resonated with you.
Oh, values, guys. Don't just think it's
So
there
to me, one feature. So for me, being a B Corp practice, like literally the first and only one in Singapore and
Right.
Asia, one of 9 B Corp, is a commitment to, because B Corp actually assesses us on 5 pillars: governance, environment, and then social. You know, how we're treating our team members, how we're treating our clients, and how we are giving back to community.
Yeah.
To me, I think people are looking for companies with a purpose. And the next level is actually, do the company's values resonate with you? So I would say first go check out, did the company list out their values? And then if any of those values there resonate, then you have a strong bond already. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Actually, with the focus on trying to find work that's more purposeful, and I mean, with this whole podcast, it's about looking for ways that can align your life more with your
Yes.
values. I think actually that's like a really clear way to find out
I
if
call that congruence, actually.
yes,
I even once, many eons back, set up a group on Facebook called the Congruence Movement, because I realized that we are now living in an age where trust is actually on a very low level. Like, I've got my son, sometimes you share, hey, the news about, hey, this happened. The first thing they ask, is that fake news?
Wow.
Yeah, so we are living now in an age where people don't naturally or trust others
yeah.
that easily.
Right.
And so, coming back to congruence, right, I am a firm believer that my personal values are also my company values, and that they are aligned in many ways.
Right.
And I think that is a way for others, so that, because if they meet you in person, or if they see you on social media, or they look at all the things that you're doing, to me it's like, does it all add up to correspond or corroborate with the core values that you have, right? And the more aligned your personal values are to your company's values, and to that is, well, to me, that is congruence. And that will help, well, shorten the period of gaining trust.
Wow, that's a really good point. I think that's something that many people probably overlook a little bit. Maybe it's a bit of like cynicism about the mission and the values page, especially with in this day and age where there's just been a lot of upheaval with, I guess, the economies and even the idea of your job security. So I think that's something to be said about companies that do focus on it and do believe in it, like yours.
I'm just so grateful that we have people who resonate with what we are doing, because what I'm doing really is shifting healthcare. What we're doing here is starting a healthcare revolution, because our current healthcare model is a sick care model, and that needs to change. And a true healthcare model is about empowering people to believe that, to know that they can heal themselves through a shift in their habits. And when we are doing something, right, I think people resonates with people, and we attract people who would come and help us.
What's a signature thing that you all do and that many people have given great feedback about in this shift of sick care to preventative and you know, being very proactive about your health?
So we are a pioneer in implementing myofunctional therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we discovered it more than 10 years ago, we were like, wow, blown away. 3 out of 5 children are mouth breathers, and that is not good. Like, it's literally like we should be using our nose to breathe. And in fact, yoga gurus or even Tai Chi, Qigong, Wushu practitioners, right, have always been told by their sifu, you must put your tongue up. You know, 舌底上颚. Yeah, tongue up to the roof of the mouth, right? And so our public health message is tongue up, lip closed, breathe through nose.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad that, you know, we have even been running courses and empowering and teaching speech language pathologists, other dentists, oral health therapists in implementing these myofunctional therapy within the dental practices.
Okay.
And we have been recognized for this effort to, and I think what we have gained is really the trust of all the health providers, ENTs, osteopaths, chiropractors, physiotherapists, IBCLCs. So we've been getting referrals from these practitioners who now recognize, I think the future is really about that the patient or the client is really there in the center, and all these practitioners are there to support. Yeah. Functional therapy. Go look at. So
therapy.
one very interesting thing is that a strain of it, okay, got viral on social media, and
Okay.
it's called mewing, named after the orthodontist John Mews.
Oh.
Yeah, but really the scientific
Right.
term is
Right.
orofacial myology or myofunctional therapy. So I would encourage people to look up the more professional
Not
way.
the viral video of mewing.
Yeah, but at least mewing, I think, helped a lot of people recognize that, hey, you know, our face is made
Okay.
up of muscles, our tongue is a muscular organ, and so these are exercisable.
Okay.
There can be exercises and stuff that you can do, right,
Yeah.
in order to train it up.
Okay.
So one simple exercise, tongue
Yes,
suction
maybe.
hold.
Let's have a live demo.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So the proper tongue resting position should be there, where the tongue is resting against the roof of the mouth. Okay, so a lot of people are not doing that. A lot of people,
Right?
yes, I'll send you an MRI of the video of a tongue. Okay, or you
Okay.
can go check out Wing Chu's TEDx talk,
Okay.
TEDx Singapore, Wellness Through the Power of the Tongue.
Okay.
So it's there in the mouth, and it actually, when you're not talking and you're not eating, the tongue resting position should be up against the roof of the mouth. So if you just say so the tip of the tongue is at the hard palate,
Right.
behind where the teeth is,
Yeah.
but the back of the tongue has to go up too, and line the top, right?
Okay.
So I realized that a hack is close your lips and smile, right? And you realize actually the tongue is there already, up against the roof of the mouth, and you literally want to hold it there and wait, right? And practice.
Okay.
So for some people, they go like, wow, it feels tiring. If it feels tiring, that means it hasn't been going up.
Okay. And
You can come to our clinic where I can give you a bottle of Myospots that you can stick up, and then it will train the tongue to go up. But really,
and what are the benefits of what do you see when people don't actually?
when the child grows up, so we advocate breastfeeding from young.
Okay.
And please do not use a pacifier. So from young, breastfeeding is actually the act of training the tongue to go up to the roof of the mouth. Yeah, when you're extracting, right? But that also is a training for proper swallowing.
Okay.
So there have been people who have been swallowing sideways or even a reverse tongue thrust when you're on a milk bottle for too long.
Okay.
So a proper swallow is up against the roof of the mouth.
Okay.
And when you do that, 3,000 times of swallow a day, you are actually growing your jaws to be nice and wide to be able to fit all the teeth. Yeah.
Okay.
So from young, if the tongue doesn't go up to the roof of the mouth, what happens is that the breastfeeding there's an issue with the breastfeeding, and that's when sometimes we discover that some babies have tongue ties, which
Sure.
the laser can help
Right.
with release. A little bit older, they will have speech issues. A little bit older, they will have crooked teeth because they have narrow jaws, or sleep issues, right? So if the tongue doesn't go up in the daytime, it's not going to automatically go up at night. So the impact comes also when you're sleeping at night. In deep sleep, the tongue further falls back and blocks the airway. The brain sends the signal, and then you start to grind your teeth, which is actually not due to stress. It's actually an airway protective function. You're moving your jaw forward so that you can open up your airway and breathe and stay alive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So tongue up,
Closed.
and breathe through your nose. So I'm a functional medicine certified
Okay.
health coach.
Wow.
I've been educated in myofunctional therapy
Okay.
and also breathing.
Retraining, guys.
Yes,
we need
and
to
in
learn
my-
how to breathe.
Yes, we do.
Oh, wow.
So breathing is an amazing. Well, breathing
this
is one
breath
thing
work?
that you do. So it's different from
Okay.
breath. Okay, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sure it goes into some kind of.
Yeah, but let's just put it that. So my thesis was on the understanding the concept that we have 5 diaphragms, that we actually literally need the whole body to be engaged when we're breathing. And maybe even we can go a step further, that if we are moving our body, then actually the breath is breathing us, and we're not. To really expand your body, right, you naturally draw the air in. And the
Okay.
whole concept of how actually when we are, breathing is the one thing that can is something that we do very unconsciously or subconsciously, but it's also something that we can gain control of back in a conscious manner,
Right.
and that can help regulate. So I recall one scare that I had. My dad had a spell and all, and we sent him to the hospital, and he was lying there on the bed, and he was definitely a little worried and was breathing very heavily. And so all I asked him was, I held his hand and I told him, just put your tongue up, close your lips, and just take deep breaths, right? Expand your rib cage, and then just breathe in and slow down your breath. When we take back control of mindful breathing, that's our way of regulating our bodies and reactivating our parasympathetic nervous system, and we can actually calm ourselves down that way. So back to the days when when I have cash flow issues and we cannot sleep, right? Actually, what helps me with sleeping is regulating my breathing.
Okay.
Trusting in the universe. Right. My dad just, at least that put him into calm him down and sleep.
Okay, actually, I think the power of breathing has been talked about. I mean, maybe not in the way, I mean, there's so many, I feel like, branches of breath work or how to breathe properly or help to calm the nervous system. I remember reading about like Marines also having to learn to breathe, like do box breathing when they're going into, really high stakes environment. Wow, thank you so much for giving us a bit of insight into what it's like to be in DP Academy. To be a student under teacher Louisa Lee. Wow. Okay, well, if we could, let's go back a little bit in time with your journey as a mom and entrepreneur. When you started DP Dental, your son was maybe only 1 year old. I know that we chatted before this call that you remember those days of like rushing to go home to breastfeed and all that. How did you manage that, and what were some of the lessons that you've learned?
I think in Asia we are very, very fortunate to be very close-knit and in our multi-generational way, right? And I belong to the fortunate group where my parents are staying with me. I recall that when I first had Sean, both sets of parents, because he was the eldest grandchild, so both sets of parents took turns to take care of him, and having that parental support or grandparents support is so important for a working woman.
Right.
And so for me, I'm just grateful that we have this option, grandparents plus helpers, that really enable us to do it all.
Right. And how about as your journey with as your husband's like kind of right hand woman and all this whole process? It's been 18 years, you've been married 30 years. What were some of the key highlights that you've really learned through this whole journey?
I think somehow with Wing Chu, we've been very fortunate that we have very different strengths. He's a visionary person who has very large dreams, and for me, I'm a strategic thinker. I do think very long and far. Wing Chu is very good at, if there is a problem on hand, he is very good. He comes up with a very creative solution. So in that we complement. He's a dreamer, but then I become the doer in life, right? In what we're doing. So I'm glad we complement each other in that sense, while having some shared values, right? And shared vision, that we love being early adopters, being trendsetter. We're always looking at what is the latest that technology or ideology can offer, and how can we do it in a different way, to bring the best possible to our clients. I have to share with you here that what happened was, at one point I was asked about, what is my role in the business, right, in the practice, and it came to me a realization that actually all this while I had been relegating myself to be like the vice captain of the ship, right? So I was like there helping, whereas actually all this while he viewed me as a co-pilot, as a co-founder, and so, well, despite the fact that I'm highly educated and that I have a supportive husband, I was my own worst enemy in putting myself in a vice captain position, when actually we were in this together, because I realized that he can have a million dreams, but if I didn't carry out any of them, nothing would have been done, nothing would have been materialized. So we were in this together, and that somehow 1 + 1 we could create 3, 4, or 5, so many things out of it. So for me, I've come to realize that sometimes our own inner talk and inner conversations, a lot of times we are our own worst enemy.
Wow, that's really powerful. Was there anything that ignited that realization, and what were some things that have changed, whether it's internally or externally, since then?
Yeah, really, it's a journey, I think, and it's a journey of me finding myself, right? Because in a way, when you first look at it 20 years ago, it did look like, oh, I was a wife, gave up her job as an educator to help the husband in his clinic, right? I think when I came to the realization that I am equally a co-founder in this, what shifted was the creation of DP Healthers. Yeah, the expansion into the academy or into progressive practice, into the wellness, and this whole creation of the whole ecosystem, and expanding our influence and our business, right? To not just be limited to dental, which I definitely can't practice as a dentist, but into a whole wider health first, where we are focusing on the future of wellness. Yeah, so I think that realization that I'm a co-founder allowed me to unleash my own vision, which actually grew into a far wider universe.
Wow, that's very powerful. The fact that you realized that in a way you were the one capping yourself, or maybe just
I was
not wanting to take the
capping.
limelight so much.
Not that I didn't want to take the limelight, but it was just like it felt like I was the supporter, right?
Yes.
But I realized that actually that is a very common thing that women do. I've known of so many couples who are doing the business together, and often they put their husband the spokesperson. So literally I've spent the last 20 years building my husband's personal brand. I was the one taking the videos and posting on social media and all that. But now me sitting here talking to you is my own step, taking one foot out in building my own personal brand, so that people also know Louisa Lee and not just the wife behind Dr. Yu Wing Chu. Yeah. So that this is my gift to myself, right? These opportunities to share my story, my perspective, and to have my own voice. Yeah. So I turned 50, so Wing Chu and I both turned 50 last year. And I remember that Martha Stewart was only created her multi-channel empire at 50.
Really? Yeah.
And so I'm a firm believer that we can live to 120. So it really did feel like, the first 50 years was a lot of learning, was a lot of giving, right? Helping, in the family business, bringing up the boys and all. And I'm now beginning a new era that I can say I'm doing things for myself.
Thank you for, just talking about that, and I think sharing something that somehow women do default to for some reason, perhaps. I was in a girls' school, and then when I graduated from the girls' school, I went into junior college, which is a co-ed school. And then what I noticed, which was quite a surprise to me, was that all the leaders or the presidents of the co-curricular activities club, like the CCAs, they were all males. And somehow, the females were the vice. So that was quite surprising to me as someone coming from a girls' school, right? Where everyone did everything. That was a realization that, maybe this is how the world works, but also feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that, Hearing that brought to memory this initial reaction I had going from an all-girls school environment to a co-ed environment.
But if you look around, actually, the boys have been always very supportive of the girls too, but sometimes it's us holding ourselves back. The question is to look inwards.
I think that's also personally at the level of a marriage, I think that's something that I've learned to slowly reframe a little bit, where I'm not just helping to maintain the family side of things, because right now my husband's one who is more involved at work. But the fact that it is just a part of the equation, and it's not a lesser part, but we need each other for both sides to
And sometimes
thrive.
it's about seasons also. Sometimes it's about if it's not fixed. To me, back to flexibility, back to even understanding how time works. So one very, very interesting concept that I learned was that, we have these whole daily grinds, right? If you realize it suits the masculine energy. Okay, morning you wake up and then like doing things on a daily basis. If you look at it more closely, right, for women, we operate on a monthly schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should start thinking in terms of this week is my doing week because I am very energetic, you know, and then this week is my resting week because the menstrual cycle has appeared, and you know it's time that I can rest. Yeah, that maybe we should be planning on a monthly cycle and plan by weeks and not try to be a man and show up daily. Yeah, as what society demands us of. And so, you know, back to seasons even, I sometimes feel like we're very disadvantaged.
Singapore has no seasons.
Only if you, but I think also because we are not, there are seasons. You know, there are some months when more flowers are blooming, and some months when it actually gets colder, right? Some people even bring their winter jacket to the office because the aircon is so cold. But it's whether we have been attuned to it or not. Yeah. But in some countries where they literally have snow,
They do, yes.
yeah, they get snowed in, right?
Yeah.
So they rest,
So it's a
hibernate.
natural-
The sun is so hot,
Yes.
and so they rest also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They sleep in. So they have the weather that is very extreme to force them to rest, right?
Yes.
I think as human beings, we also should be more in tune to seasons, and so think of it, plan the year, right, around that, and allow ourselves that respite, that time to also just rest. Yeah, I think that is important.
Oh, yeah, really appreciate it because I'm also in this season of learning a little bit more about the Sabbath rest actually and how it's so important written into the grain of nature and how if God rested, I have no excuse to rest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nature
enlightening.
therapy, right? Nature
yeah.
heals. I think that's the one thing. I mean, we're blessed with tree-lined, you know, streets and all, but it's different from when you are really in a forest or looking out at the ocean or
Right.
gazing at the high
Nature.
mountain. So I think Singaporeans travel a lot because we really don't get that much of that opportunity where you're totally immersed in
Yes,
nature
yes.
and that, you know, the magic
Yes.
of the air, the
Being
ions,
out-
is
yeah.
healing. And you
So many happy memories of my time in
Your
the
travels,
US and all,
yes,
like
yes.
living in, you know, and half an hour away from mountains. So now I try to go to the beach every week with my family.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So just a little hint, because the sun's ray is actually very good, but ideally the dawn or the dusk sun,
Okay.
right? So less of the
the
UV.
middle.
When you go to the beach
Yeah, take off
and
your
walk
shoes.
barefoot,
Yeah.
wet silica, because then you're also doing grounding work,
Oh.
discharging. So that is very healing too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So many places we've been today in our conversation, Louisa. In wrapping up, I would love to hear, you know, as you juggle work and motherhood, what do you hope to impart in them or hope they learn from you and your husband?
You heard the saying that you can teach other people's kids, but you can't teach your own. So I think the only thing that Wing Chu and I hope for our boys is that we are able to model the behavior for them, right? That through our behavior, I don't take any credit for what Sean has created in his business, except for the fact that, yeah, I hope that we modeled that behavior.
That note, can you talk a little bit about some things that are routines to you all or that are really important for you all to build and have healthy children in this day and age? And I'm talking about mentally, emotionally,
So
healthy,
I have this thing
well-adjusted
called
children.
7 Pillars of Health verse, all right? So air, water, food,
Oh.
frequency, movement, sleep, love. And I really want to communicate this to parents, that it's not the amount of tuition and enrichment classes that we give them that's going to help them grow up healthy, but go back to basics and look at these basic elements, right? How are they breathing? You know, what are they drinking? Are you giving them sodas? You know, what kind of food are we giving them, right? Processed food, sugar laden, or whole food? And I believe in an ancestral diet.
Okay.
Yeah, movement. You know, myopia is not because the child is always constantly looking at something near.
Right.
It's the lack of looking at something far. So
right.
children need to go out and run around and look at mountains, right?
Yes,
Which we don't
yes,
have,
the
right?
beach.
Sleep is so important, and yet the biggest needle mover in sleep is breathing. So how you breathe in the daytime then determines whether you're going to get that deep sleep at night or whether you're going to get disrupted because you were grinding. Okay, and last but most important, all the child needs from us
Yeah.
is love.
Right.
Unconditional love.
So, signature question for you, Louisa. Can we have it all?
Yes, definitely. The only one often who will tell me no is myself, my old self. And so for me, definitely hope is my biggest strength. I think we all need to have that.
Right.
And I think that has helped me really survive all the challenges as an entrepreneur, because the entrepreneurial journey is really, imagine that escalator, a
Right.
travelator, but you're actually on a travelator that's always constantly moving backwards. So you literally have to
right.
keep walking, sometimes even run if you want to stay ahead. That's the journey of an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I consider myself like, I love the challenge that I'm not just only building the business of today, but I'm also building my business of tomorrow. I believe that if we set our heart to it, we can do it all and we can have it all.
Right. Thank you so much, Louisa. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your sharing your insights and your personal stories, and also the plug for SMEs.
I sit on the board of the Association of Small and Medium Enterprise, and I really think that SMEs are the largest employers pool in Singapore, and do see the merits of working with exciting founders of these, and they can be closely mentoring you even.
Thanks, Louisa. And for our listeners of Make It Work, we have a really exciting promo today that Louisa is extending to us. So, Louisa, please share more about it.
So I'm happy to extend our Novathor full body light pod. It's like a red light therapy and it's very energizing. So for the tired mothers or working women, we're happy to offer 2 sessions for the price of 1 if you could make it work. For mothers too, well, I mentioned how pacifiers are really not ideal for your children. So we have this device called the Munchie, and it's a pacifier replacement. So code Make It Work, and we're happy to extend a 10% discount.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.